you. Well, we'll go ahead and start up. And Jen, why don't you kick it off?
All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's so nice to be with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to talk about events, and we have a lot to get through. There is going to be so many great ideas shared. So I'm going to kind of get into it real quickly because I want to make sure we hear from everybody. But real quick, shout out to all of the committee members who helped put these local association COPs together. Couldn't do any of this without them. So thank you for that. We are going to be hearing from multiple people on multiple aspects of event planning. So we're really excited to dig into the nitty gritty of event planning because they tend to be sort of the backbone of local associations. So we'll be talking about a variety of topics and also really focusing on, how things have changed more recently post-COVID, or, even during COVID, what was relevant there. So we're going to be hearing from first from our friends in Dallas at the Dallas Association of Directors of Volunteers. Brittany Coe and Severina Ware will be sharing their expertise in this space. And I have heard Brittany talk about this before, and I'm not understating the expert part of that. She really knows events. And then we're going to hear from Ashley Reiser in Southwest Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh Dovia. Also, our friend Mary Lynn Perry, Sacramento Dovia, Jerry Panozzo, New York Association of Volunteer Administrators in New York City. And Gretchen is going to share some of her experience with particularly the hybrid conference and other events relevant to Alive. She's the Alive association manager. We are going to leave time for Q&A as we are able, and we'd love to hear from other local associations too. If something really exciting happened at your local association, we would love for you to share about that event opportunity that worked really well for you. So I think we'll just jump right in, hearing from Brittany and Severina. So ladies, take it away.
All right, so Severine and I are going to tag team. So I will take planning and she will take logistics. So DADV, like most of our local orgs, had a pretty tough time during COVID. Texas was locked down for, I think, like 30 days, but then the ripple effects continued as we had wave after wave of COVID. And so we wanted to find a new way to get our members engaged. And so we reached out to Dovia of Tarrant County. So when we thought about planning it, we started that idea when we did our annual board retreat. So at our retreat strategic planning session, we take a look at what our meetings are going to be for the next year. And that year we decided to include some happy hours, or at least hold a space for some sort of joint association meetup. So we had several meetings with the Dovia people via Zoom. Love the platform when it works. And we started that planning about 6 months before. So we just kind of broached the idea with the other group and said, hey, is this something that your group would be interested in participating in? And then we looked at all that we do as nonprofits and who had busy seasons based on the organization types of our membership and theirs. They tend to skew more like teachers and PTA type things with some, social services, animal stewardship places. And then DADV really runs the gamut. And so we decided that December might be the best time, somewhere in between when school gets out, but before the holiday travel began. And so we just had several meetings, and we had to delegate, which I know as leaders, it's really hard for us to sometimes do that. So we agreed to have one person take a stab at finding a place that was possibly as centrally located as we could. And because Dovia had more members that were willing to come than we were getting feedback from ours, we decided to go somewhere a little bit closer to them. And then we just looked at what are the costs. Some of the ideas we had were something that, like doing a smash room or something like an escape room or something like that. I'm like, well, we all have pent up frustration. I'm willing to pay to break other people's things. What sort of liability is involved in that? So we did our due diligence, and we had, I think it was someone on Dovia that actually found a couple of ideas, and then we workshopped how that would be possible. What about the people who have babysitters? What's the best time for us to do this so that someone could, have a little bit of an adult life after work, but then still make it home for tubby and bath time. So those were all things that we did. And then eventually it came together. We used a platform called Eventbrite, which is free as long as you are not charging people. Another good one is Sign Up Genius, which also has a lot of really good free things, because tracking who's coming determines whether or not you're going to have an event sometimes. And so Severina attended. Unfortunately, as we got closer to the date, I and several other people had some work jump up and bite us. But we had, I think, about maybe a little bit under a dozen people, and we met up at a place that did like games. So everyone can kind of choose their own adventure, but there was enough things that two people could do. They had like a bar area, you could order some food to help elicit some of that networking and getting to know one another. And then in November, because the Upswell conference was hosted in Dallas, FISA reached out along with Jennifer from Volunteer Match to say, hey, can we do a CVA meetup? And then I was in that meeting. I'm like, why don't we just open it up to as many local orgs as we can? So it went much the same way. Where's everyone coming from? What's easy for someone to get to from an Uber perspective? That's not going to be $11 billion because we're trying to go somewhere during rush hour from one side of Dallas to the other. If you've never had the great honor of visiting Dallas, when you put in something in GPS, it's like, oh, that's 15 miles away. Estimated time of arrival, 45 minutes. So all of those things are things to take into account. And like, if you've heard me speak before, I love to do a good survey. So I like to do a pulse check of what the members want before we just go planning something, because as much as we think it's an awesome idea, and we have a lot of awesome ideas, if people aren't willing to spend the time to come and do those things, it doesn't really help us. Also looking at costs, because in addition to paying membership dues, this is something that's outside of one of our planned meetings. So that would require someone have the time, gas, available vehicle. Is there a public transportation method? Because you all know I love me some accessibility. So now we'll let Severina get into the logistics of how we let people know what we're doing and how we get them to come.
Thank you so much, Brittany. It's always a pleasure getting to present with you because you're one of my favorite people. And I'm very lucky that with DADV, I get to work so closely with you. So I'm going to kind of start from the top all the way to the end when it comes to planning events for DADV. I originally started on our social media team, and then I have transitioned into membership. And luckily, Brittany's going to let me stay around and move into the vice president role this upcoming year. So very excited to even dive deeper into planning and logistics for our meetings. One of the things that I can say that we actually do very well as a local association is we carve out time to really, strategically plan our purpose and objectives for the year. So we sit down twice a year, once in the fall, once before the fall, and like not in the fall. Is it in the spring or summer?
We usually do
Summer and
summer
winter.
for fall and then a winter one for spring.
For
Yeah.
spring. I got that mixed up because we have one coming up right now. We sit down and we kind of hammer out our entire schedule for the year. We look at dates, we look at times, we look at, okay, do we want to do something outside of the box? Maybe a happy hour, let's do a service project. We will map everything out, talk it through, and then hit the ground running with each of our respective roles. We have been very fortunate that our members really enjoy the times that we already meet, which is the third Wednesday of the month. And we haven't had to stray from that at all because they know that's a dedicated DADV day. Of course, with COVID, we have had to transition our meetings from being in person to we reflect a little hybrid model to where we have some meetings that are in person. Quite a few of them have really transitioned to Zoom because it's just easier for people that are starting to transition back into the office, don't have the availability to leave the office. So having that option to meet on Zoom has been really helpful. Consistency is key with our meeting dates. Like I said, our members know that the third Wednesday of the month is dedicated to DADV. So they show up for us, which is really helpful. And we really haven't had to stray away. But when we have, we're really good at listening to our members and them really letting us know like, hey, this time frame doesn't work for me. And we can really work on moving things to where it works for everyone. And Brittany is the queen of surveys. I don't know if you know that. She has pulled together some of the best surveys that really help us get that feedback from our members. When it comes to choosing a place for our our in-person meetings, we are very fortunate here in the Dallas area that most of our nonprofits that are members are willing to open their doors to have DADV show up. So we've got a great partnership with Volunteer Now here in Dallas. I know that my organization hosted a service project for us. The Senior Source here in Dallas has been willing to open their doors. Our local VNA, Meals on Wheels, that's where our meetings used to be religiously, the third Wednesday of every month. They used to open their doors for us, and now they're like, please come back. We want you guys to come back. We loved having DADV. So we are, like I said, very fortunate that we have members and organizations that are behind us and willing to have us come out and host our meetings, which makes it very easy because we can move around and kind of see different organizations and really get our members like engaged and networking with, oh, so you're the volunteer coordinator here, you're the volunteer manager here. Let me see how your operation moves behind the scenes and everything. So we're very fortunate with that. Of course, for our virtual platform, like everyone else, we utilize Zoom, which, is just easiest. We meet the first week of the month and we prepare our agenda and kind of go through and touch base with whoever our speaker is or whatever we're doing for the month. And our board kind of talks through like, okay, you're in charge of going to get this for this meeting. You're in charge of the Zoom link for this meeting. So make sure that you're on 15 minutes before, have everything set up, have the speaker ready to go and everything. We divide and conquer very, very well to where our meetings are usually planned out, ready to go ahead of time. That way, whoever's doing communications can get that information out. So creating the graphic for the meeting. Because like I said, we plan out our year, we have the calendar ready to go. So in September, in our newsletter that goes out, our members will get a full breakdown of our calendar with cute graphics, just letting them know like, hey, here's what's on the horizon. We let them know like, hey, we're not going to have a meeting in June because it's Points of Light. So if you're going to Points of Light, you'll have that option. Don't have to worry about DADV. I think we take off in August because we do a book club. So it's all laid out at the beginning. So after that first meeting of the month with the board, we kind of divide and conquer again. We have graphics created. We send out email communication. We post it on our LinkedIn. We post it on our Facebook. We send everything out to where members know, along with the Eventbrite, letting them know, hey, this is where you need to register. It's bring your own lunch, or we'll be providing lunch. We'll be providing a meal, whatever that is. We arrange with the speakers to let them know, hey, this is the date. This is the meeting time. Here's the schedule. Here are how many members we have coming. So we have a very well-oiled machine. So sending out those emails and kind of promoting the event. And then it's just managing the event as it gets closer to the date. Constant reminders on social media and everything. Making sure if we're using Zoom, the links are ready, the links are working, technology is in place. Somebody's hosting. We know who's going to be the lead host for the day. If we are providing lunch to members, we have our catering squared away. And then it's just hosting the meeting and making sure that everyone's there. We do a virtual check-in via Eventbrite. So as people come in, we check them off to make sure that we have everybody's attendance and everything, and we have all the materials ready to go. And then we follow up afterwards. We make sure we take a picture at every meeting. We follow up with an email and let them know, thank you so much for coming. Another reminder that, hey, remember our next meeting's at this time, or we don't have a meeting next month. How about you try and do X, Y, and Z for this next month? Maybe a service project, maybe reach out to someone in the organization to plan. And then we kind of meet together at our next board meeting and we evaluate and see what we need to do better and discuss logistics for the next month.
Oh, Gretchen, Jen, before we move on, can I address this question from Amanda in the
Yes,
chat?
please. Thank you.
Great. So we send out newsletters once a month. We try to hit that as close to the beginning of the month as we can so that we capture everything and we're not saying, oh, hey, by the way, through extra emails. I don't know if digital fatigue is a thing. Severina, if you have any stats on what our open rate is. Unfortunately, with the way that email protection has increased in the way of junk and spam filters, we have continued to run into an issue where, since we're sending from MailChimp and it's going to a .org, or sometimes people use a personal email address. We've had issues with people not getting the emails. They don't show up in junk or spam, and they don't show up in email quarantine. And so unfortunately, there's just not a way to know like what our open rate is on stuff like that. We can track it via Facebook and some of our other social media, but not
And
quite so well as email.
I can definitely speak to that because I did a lot of the communications and I'm about to transition a little bit more into that with the vice president role. We used MailChimp, and like Brittany said, we ran into quite a few issues when it came to people not receiving the emails. We have since started to transition to Google Suite, and I will let you know it's been making it a lot easier to send emails and for people to actually receive them. So I think moving into this next year, because this is very brand new for us, I think moving into this next year, being able to send out those emails through Google and like our designated like email address that's not attached to MailChimp like it's ours is going to help a lot. Along with our monthly newsletter, the only other time we send out communication is in like the week after the meeting. And that's just to follow up with people to let them know, thank you for coming. And that doesn't go out to everyone. That typically goes out to the people that attended the meetings. If we did do a Zoom meeting, we usually will include that recording in the newsletter at the beginning of the month, unless somebody specifically requests like, hey, I wasn't able to make it to that meeting. Do you have the recording? We'll send it to them individually. But other than that, we try to like really step back because we understand that our emails are in shambles, like shambles. I can openly attest to that as someone who went to Disney World and then Points of Light and then got back and looked at my inbox and was like, please take me away again. So I want to alleviate as much communication as possible going into people's emails. So we've been very diligent about how we really execute sending out communication.
Yeah, we also got a Google phone number, which is free. So in addition to having email, there's another way that our members can contact us. So that goes to, I think it forwards to my phone. We don't have a lot of people using it, but it's nice to, if you're on the road and you can't send an email because you're driving, you could call and say, hey, I'm going to be late to this meeting. Anything else that happens communication-wise in the interim between the newsletter going out is often placed on our Facebook. So if someone's like, hey, I have a question from this meeting and I don't remember who I connected with, we can put it on Facebook. Or, hey, TVMC is looking for speakers, but the newsletter already went out. We can put that on Facebook. So that's more of the instantaneous like updates. We don't use one of those databases. We use good old Google Docs with a good old spreadsheet that we try to keep as updated as possible. But Google Docs has also been figuring itself out because when we have new board members join, I usually give them access to their specific folder for their position. And I still have people that I've sent the link like 4 or 5 times to, but for some reason Google does not let them in. So maybe one of those databases is something we could look into. Are either one of those free? They're not free? Okay, well, maybe we can appoint a little bit of budget
I don't
to
know
that.
about free, but I've looked into wild apricot and it's rather expensive.
Okay, yeah, that's a little cost prohibitive. We enjoy solvency as much as the next local association, so we don't really spend more money than we have to. But we also source our members. We're like, hey, what's working for you? That's also free because that's my favorite number. It's my favorite brand. I love it. So yeah, if you have any questions, Gretchen has our information. You can also find us on LinkedIn. But thanks for listening. Oh, one more thing I forgot. Sorry. In order to incentivize people to come to the meetings, we also like analog. So we've printed out our calendar and we've done it like a bingo. So if you come to X number of meetings, we created a DADV shirt, so we would raffle one of those away, or stickers or some swag from our organizations that doesn't really cost us anything. So anything we can do to get butts and seats within reason, we're willing to try.
Well, thank you so much. So you can see why we wanted Dallas in the room, because they really, really know what they're doing with events. So thank you so much. What I really appreciate about the way you all are approaching your work is that not only are you super intentional about communicating and listening to members and finding out what will work for them and what will be attractive to them, but you're also on top of the logistics and planning while also centering the community and the team building and the networking, centering those relationships. Really, I'm just sort of thinking about this now, but like at our essence, that is what we are, is holding space for that community to be built around, this work that we're all doing in common. And I just feel like your program down there is just such a beautiful example of that being done successfully and so professionally. I also just want to point out something that Severina talked about, which is planning ahead so that I was going to mention this later, but since you mentioned it, that for our local association has been so helpful, because when people go to your website, they know what they're getting for their member dollar, right? They go to their website and they see things are planned out. They see what events you have coming. Maybe your old events are on your website as well. Ours are, so that people don't go to a blank website and then wonder why they should spend their $40 or $60, whatever it is, to join your local association. So I loved that as well, and so much consistency. It seems like you all always have something going on. There's lots of consistency, so people know what to expect, and there are opportunities to engage. So thank you so much for all of that wealth of information. Are there any other questions before we move on from Dallas?
I'm just sharing the picture I found from Points of Light when I wore one of my Disney dresses, and there was Sabrina in coordinating outfit. Very cute.
Oh, very fun.
I'm always dressed as a checkered flag.
I love it, because you are a winner for sure.
So perfect for the Cars dress. I love it.
I actually have a
thank you.
quick
Yes,
question.
Amanda.
Sorry. One of the things that we're kind of looking at too for SWITUVs in part of our revitalization efforts is looking at kind of doing better with our website. It's fairly basic and stuff, but none of us really have the time to like put in the energy to do all the changes and to make things happen on the back end. Can you guys like recommend like any way to possibly utilize a cheap method for like somebody who could like revamp a website, or any suggestions along those lines? So I was debating about working with our local university with their service learning students. It's just you have to find the right person, and stuff like that to do it for free. So I would love any suggestions there as far as like making your website more interactive, but not like a constant have to babysit it kind of thing.
Yeah, so Severina has helped do most of our website build. We bought a domain through GoDaddy, and then we did that. We built the website during our strategic retreat because we knew, one, we were all going to be there at the same time, and then we decided to put the most evergreen things up. So I was going to say Canva is also really great. We used to make all of our graphics in Canva, and we would essentially just use the same background, so it's consistent branding, and then we just flipped the dates. So we just did as much of that in advance as we could, and then we put the most evergreen things on the website. So our website is pretty static, except for when we have membership renewals. We use Jotform to do the invoice and payments, and we also use Square. So we do that, and then we have our calendar of meetings already up there. And so we're not really going in and changing something every time we have a meeting. So it still has a modern look. We'll occasionally try to add pictures that we've taken at meetings or something. So if someone is visiting often, it's like there's slight differences. But yes, none of us really have the time to do that. And in fact, because we've unfortunately lost some board members, we were a 9-person board, and now we're down to 4 people just due to life and other circumstances. And so last month we had to pivot, and I'm like, look, everyone, we're gonna have to find a way to do this. And so DADV is on a temporary hiatus. So we communicated that with our members, and we're like, look, we want to be able to bring you the best product possible, and we can't do that if we're trying to cover the spread for 4 people that are no longer here, in addition to doing our day jobs. So it was a tough decision, but I think I've heard feedback from our members that they respected the fact that we've done that and that we've respected ourselves in the amount of time it's going to take. So when we have our strategic retreat, which is actually planned for Saturday, we may do quarterly meetings instead, or, we're going to start first with what's the best product we can give with the least amount of lift on us. And then we know that our members will just understand and go from there. So, we just did that communication. Is the yearly schedule reflecting your board meetings? Yes. Oh, board meetings, no. Sorry, I
No,
thought.
this one is just for the members. The one that I posted the link to that's shareable, that is what went out directly to our members. And to kind of piggyback off of what Brittany was just saying, we have such an innate just knowledge of our members that I have full confidence that even though we've been on this temporary hiatus and we're meeting this weekend, that we are about to pivot in a way that is really going to benefit DADV in the long run, because we did take that pause, that step back, and not try and rush to fill that gap. And like I said, our members are very understanding, and reading the email responses that we've received, okay, I get it. We get it. And here's the thing, they get it, they understand, and they're willing to let us just figure it out. And I think that's going to really help us come back a lot stronger and be able to reach out to people and say, hey, we need people on the board. And these are the capacities that we need them, and be able to give them a clear, concise, we're not going to throw this load on you that you're going to come in and be like, oh, this is very overwhelming. We just want to get us back on our feet to continue to serve our members. So I think this is really good for us.
And that's such a testament to the community that you've built, right? That work in creating that community is serving you in that way, because people are in communication with you and are understanding and supportive of that. And I love that you took that time, because I will tell you, this comes up with local associations all the time. Several people in the chat are saying this happened to us, this happened to us. We're all seeing contraction across the field, but in locals, and then the side effect of that is in local associations. And for those of us who are in leadership trying to keep, our oars in the water, it is so important to do what is realistic and sustainable, because there can be so much pressure on people to do things that will just burn you out. And so being what is actually reasonable and achievable by the leadership. I love that you put that forward with the community so that they can help support you. And like you said, Sabrina, yes, that is going to help with recruitment. I'm just so happy that you mentioned that. And that normalizes it for everybody, because we're all experiencing this. And with as strong as your organization is, it's still, we still run into challenges. Things are not perfect. So thank you so much for sharing that piece. That's so important for all of us to hear. I really appreciate that. Any other questions for Dallas? I like a good pregnant pause. All right. Well, thank you both again so much. I always learn from you when I'm in the room with you, Brittany. And Sabrina, I'm so happy to meet you and learn from you as well. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your wealth of experience. We're so appreciative. So we're going over to my friend Mary Lynn. So Mary Lynn is in Sacramento, and she's going to talk a little bit about a different aspect of this is how can you partner with other organizations or businesses to help with your events. And so let's throw it over to Mary Lynn.
Thank you, Jen. And if you can go ahead and go to the next slide, that would be great. Just a brief mention about Dovia Sacramento. It's been in existence since 1978. It has managed to have a continuous existence. And like all the other Dovias and organizations out there, our key claim to fame is education. So we're always doing trainings of different kinds and different sorts of programs. And we were, of course, affected a lot by the COVID situation, where we weren't able to do a lot of events in person at all. We switched to Zoom like everybody else had that learning curve. And we continue to do a mix of programming now, both in person and then also on Zoom. And it's an interesting mix of things that we've been getting more and more people coming in person now to events. So that actually prompted us to redo something that we hadn't done for a while. So prior to COVID, we actually had 2 half-day trainings that we would do as part of our educational program. We would do a monthly program and then we would do these half-day trainings. And so we would normally bring in a speaker from out of the area or someone that was a name in some way to do the trainings. And we decided, well, I think we're about ready to try it again. So retreat last year, we decided, okay, we'll do 2. So the first one we do in the fall is always our Alive hybrid conference. We've been doing that almost since the beginning of the hybrid conference. I don't know if we go back to the very beginning, but we're pretty close. And then we decided to add in the a spring training. So we did a leadership summit, and that one was called Leadership Summit for Volunteer Managers, Make It Matter. Conversations, relationships, essential meetings. And so we were sticking our toes out there and trying to figure out how are we going to make this happen. And we started looking around because, of course, we want to do everything free or cheap, just like all the other Dovias and organizations out there. Just basically a nonprofit process. You have to go ahead and try to figure out how to do this for cheap. So we launched things and started to plan. And the first thing we were doing was looking for space, was looking for a venue. So can we go to the next slide there? I don't think I can advance them. So we were looking for a venue. That was one of the first things. We normally would use one of our nonprofits, either on the board or a member that would offer space. And we decided that for the summit, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do something a little bit higher level. So we started looking around. Of course, we checked into hotels and conference spaces that are commercial, and they're expensive. They're much more than we can afford. But one of the local venues that we had attended events in was by the Sierra Health Foundation, their particular headquarters, which is located right along the river. It's a beautiful site. You can see the interior of the space that we were using. Huge windows. It's all woody, all woods around it, and you can go out on the patio when you have a break and look at the river. It's just a beautiful space, and very high ceilinged. They provided a lot for us, but we had to apply. So we had to be ready ahead of time to look into that. It wasn't something we could just do, the week before. We had to go through quite a little process with them to get the space for free. And we were able to do that because we've maintained our nonprofit status. And that actually has been key to us getting a lot of support, is getting that nonprofit status, having that, kept alive essentially, so that we haven't lost that. When we applied, we went through a lot of questions from them. There were some restrictions, but we were able to make that work. They provided free parking as well as the conference space, free audiovisual, and also free breakfast for our attendees, and as well as the snacks and also beverages during the day. So it was a lovely space and just great for us to have it. We could use it for 4 times during the week, during the year. Go ahead to the next slide, please. And then we brought in a facilitator and presenter who's well known to our people. She had spoken for us a couple times in the past 6, 7 years, and everybody really loves her. It's Becky Lunders. I just mentioned her if anybody's interested in a great speaker. She's always very lively. She does a lot of things on change management for corporate sector as well. So she's a great presenter. She did charge us for her time because she was not able to fill that with another contract. So she charged us, but we did ask for a discount, and we had a significant discount from her. So if you have a speaker that is charging, please ask for a discount, because a lot of times you will get them. But she was an attraction for people to come because they wanted to hear Becky. Okay, next slide. And then we also went out and sought funds from businesses. We used a sponsorship matrix that we had put together. So, if you provide this amount, you get these benefits. We'll say, put you in on the website. We'll put you, in our news, our media releases. We'll add you to social media, that kind of thing. So we gave a matrix out, and we were able to get a $500 sponsorship from a local business. So that helped to pay for part of the speaker fee. And then we also offered discounted membership deals to our attendees, and that resulted in a lot of new members and lapsed members. We actually brought in 20 members just from this one event. So that, of course, is the bread and butter of all Dovias out there, is to have your membership. And we were using a lot of ways to get that information out. So you can go to the next slide. So for marketing, of course, we had a media release that went out. We put it into the newsletter, also our website, social media, and email announcements. We have about 500 contacts on our email list. And then we also have a youth volunteer directory that's another 100. So about 600 emails blasts would go out periodically to let people know about the event, in addition to these other methods. But then we also went and got a media sponsor. So we have a sort of a loose connection with someone who used to be on our board many years ago, who owns the Messenger Publishing Group. And what they are is the local newspapers. So they're little shopper papers, and then some of them are more sophisticated newspapers as well. So we went to them and said, would you be a media sponsor? And what they have done also, we offered some options. Like, if you're a media sponsor for us, here's some suggestions as to what you might want to do. And that included things like that they would be able to send a reporter, that they would get exclusive access, things like that. So we tried to play that up a little bit. They did say yes. They sent a reporter, and they also wrote a beautiful article that has gone out to all these different local newspapers. And so it's gotten the word out again about Ardovia, and of course didn't cost us anything. And that's really the bottom line, right? So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much, Jen.
Mary Lynn, I've never heard that you made a partnership with a media organization. I love that. That is so creative. I have not heard of any local associations having done that before. I also really appreciate that you are pulling networking from the past in to help support current, that networking, it lasts. It'll come in handy. Thank you so much. Really creative ideas. Some I hadn't heard that you had done before. I really appreciated hearing that. At our local association, we had done something similar for one of our events where we had they were Sterling volunteers at the time, but verified volunteers, or verified volunteers at the time. They're not Sterling volunteers, but they came and had a table at our event and sponsored the event. And so it paid for like the rental and the hospitality, the food costs, things like that. And they just did a quick 5-minute presentation at the beginning of the training, and then were there to answer questions and kind of provide resources for people who were there. And that ended up paying for the cost of the workshop, so that the workshop became a fundraiser for us, essentially, because all of the registration fees then went into the organization rather than paying for the venue, as often is the case. Thank you so much for sharing about thinking outside the box. How can you partner with your other stakeholders in the community, even the media? I love it. Any questions for Mary Lynn? I thought I saw a question come through chat. Let me find it. Amanda. Yeah, Amanda, do you want to jump in?
Oh, I was just saying, like, it would be, if you're willing, Mary Lynn, I would love to see what that sponsorship matrix kind of looked like, to kind of be able to see if there's something that could be replicated in our revitalization efforts.
Sure, I'll see if I can track it down. I might be able to drop it into the chat for you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, several people were interested in seeing that, Mary Lynn. Thanks.
Yeah, I think I would just mention too that we also had some fundraising that was done through a couple of different methods. Like one of them is called Big Day of Giving. And so Big Day of Giving is a local effort very similar to Giving Tuesday that all the nonprofits in the area participate in. With our local community foundation. And so some of those funds that were raised were also, supporting some of these events as well. Yeah, Big Day of
Great
Giving.
idea. Brittany, I saw you come off mute.
Yes, thank you. You're so mindful of the room, Jen. I love that about you.
Oh,
Question. How did you connect to your previously lapsed members? Was there like specific messaging you used or?
So a lot of people had dropped off during COVID. Like we now are back up to 80 members, but at the time, we went way down. I mean, I want to say we were like at 25 or something like that during COVID, and people just were not renewing their membership. We left them on our contact list, is what we did, and so we continued to communicate. We didn't drop them off, and we noticed that they would come to things. They would come, like we were doing a lot of things for free on Zoom because it wasn't really costing us anything except for the Zoom, but we were letting them come. And so they knew what we were doing. They were aware that we were continuing, that things were going on and so forth. And they were coming. So then we were just trying to maintain that contact. But then once we gave some of these special deals with both the hybrid conference and then also with the summit, then people came back, which was interesting. It was just kind of an incentive. I'm not sure, it wasn't
yes.
that big a deal. I mean, they still had to pay something because they were paying for the actual conference. And then we were giving them a deal on the membership where they had to pay just a smaller amount to become members again. And that just brought people back.
So again, a huge takeaway for me from both Dallas and Sacramento is that community building, that creating that community. People are a part of it. And when you build it, they will come, right? That is fantastic, Mary Lynn. Thank you for sharing that. And again, normalizing that many of us have gone through hard times and people are bouncing back. So this is really exciting. All right. Anything else before I jump over to my friend Ashley? And we'll have time later as well. All right, Ashley, what are y'all doing in Pittsburgh?
Oh, well, we're doing some great things here. I'm going to just shut off my camera because my connectivity is stronger when I don't have my video on. I'm with the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and our local organization is called VASP. It's the Volunteer Associators of Southwestern Pennsylvania. And one of the things that we found was the challenges that I think a lot of other Dovias were facing during COVID, where you couldn't get together and meet. And it had a big change in terms of what opportunities were available. And that was the case for us. So we started to do some of the virtual meetings to still have a connection with our members, but we did see a huge drop off in membership during that time. And to try to build that back up, we actually offered free memberships for the next couple of years, just to get people to come back, maybe take a taste of what we were offering. And we found similar to what Brittany was saying about Dallas, 15 minutes or 15 miles takes 45 minutes here too. And so the Southwestern Pennsylvania region is very, very large. And we wanted to still do things in person like we'd done before COVID, but we also wanted to have that virtual option so that those individuals that couldn't travel in the middle of the day still had the opportunity to participate. So what we found was that they were harder to make work than in-person or remote meetings, because you have two groups with very different experiences of the meetings. Some were located in a physical location, such as an office, and some were remote with video conferencing software. We've used Zoom, Teams, as well as Google Meet, and they've been all pretty much the same in terms of the way that they work. we found some challenges, that there could be some disconnection between in-person and remote members, that information was lost as project documents weren't always shared between the team. And there could be technological glitches that derailed the meeting. So we came up with a couple of things that we wanted to do to keep the meetings working well for both those who were there in person and those who were there virtually. So we've kept the meeting shorter and we started on time. The in-person attendants can socialize while waiting for the meeting to start, but remote participants get stuck waiting in front of their cameras. So to avoid this, we made sure that the meeting started at a scheduled time. And we held them in a conference room. Reserving space, such as a conference room, lets us set up the technology and the room layout in advance. Checking the technology was especially important. We made sure that the room was equipped with enough high-quality microphones so remote participants can hear. And that was a big challenge, that the individuals within the room could hear really well, but those who were on video were really struggling with being able to hear. So if multiple microphones weren't a viable option, we supplemented the audio input by having in-person attendees pass out a handheld microphone so that they could hear who was speaking. We tested the audio-visual equipment and internet connections far enough ahead of the meeting to make sure that we could troubleshoot them. We did quick meeting rehearsals to uncover any potential problems that we may encounter during the meeting. Just taking that few minutes to testing out the tools made a huge difference in how all of that worked for us. We also learned that there were some real benefits to having these hybrid meetings. It required more planning, so the meetings were more impactful. We had more time to really think through what we were doing and making sure that we had dotted all of our I's and crossed all of our T's. We had better documentation of the meetings because we were able to record them. We could do some digital collaboration, both with those who were in the room as well as on the screen. And it created more flexibility for our members. We found that they worked best with a clear agenda so that everyone could prepare for the meetings and that the activities that we planned to do were able to be both virtual and in person, that everyone was sharing the same type of experience. We shared the agenda in advance so that our members had time to gather any materials that they wanted or prepare any questions. And another important piece of it was to create a communication plan. It helps set the norms and practices for communicating during the hybrid meetings. So for example, when an in-person participant they speak into the microphone and introduce themselves. Remote attendees were on mute until they were ready to speak. The materials and tools that were used on screen were meaningful so that everyone could participate. We've used an online whiteboard platform so all attendees could take notes and add ideas in real time. And we warmed up the team as the beginning of the meeting started so that everybody was communicating together, both virtually and in person. And it created more of like an icebreaker at the beginning, so everybody felt more comfortable as the meeting went on. Another suggestion that we had was to assign a facilitator to help balance the participation. The facilitator could be more deliberate and structured in the way that they took comments from the team members. And they could slightly step in if one side was speaking more than the other. They could ask for comments from anyone who seemed like they hadn't had a chance to speak. And they kept moving the meeting forward so it didn't go over on time. Additionally, with our hybrid meetings, we had some follow-up after the meetings. We would identify what the next steps might be. We looked for ways that what wasn't working and what was working, we were able to discuss to determine how we could improve future meetings. And we celebrated the wins that we had. So that's really it for me, unless anybody has any questions. But thanks, Jen.
Wow, Ashley, that was amazing. I really appreciate how much mindfulness you put into people's experiences and people's needs and eliminating barriers to participation and inviting people in a variety of ways, even though it meant more logistics for you. What a lot of what you were talking about really reminds me of Dallas's approach, right? And just that you said at one point, I'm trying to remember exactly how you said it, but that your events were more impactful because of the additional planning that was required. And that just reminds me so much of what Dallas was talking about, right? Is that those planning and the logistics and how that service to the community that you're providing. Wow, so impressive. Thank you so much for sharing all of that amazing information. Amanda.
Yeah, real quick, did you have that communication plan like in a written form or something? Like, I'm always looking to not recreate the wheel,
Sure.
you know, to like glean things that are working and to, you know, maybe add our own flair and stuff.
We just kind of went over it verbally, but I'm happy to put that together and share it, Amanda. And I have to say, Dallas and Mary Lynn were very hard acts to follow.
No kidding. It is true. And another interesting overlap is that you did something similar to what Sacramento did. They didn't, I don't know if Sacramento did officially like free membership, but there is a time and a place where you need to invite people back into the fold, right? And making things more accessible to people. Again, barriers to participation. I really appreciate the ways that you did that in multiple ways, including financial, right? To invite people in. Yeah. What else? Any other questions?
I have a question.
Thank you.
Yes, so we may consider doing more of the hybrid. And this is a question for Ashley, but also for the group. Has anyone had greater success in utilizing the caption feature on some of the live meetings? I know they've gotten a lot better, but
I have
They-
used them, but go ahead, Ashley. Yes.
Oh, no, go ahead, Jen.
I was
We've
just
used
gonna
it
say,
too.
yeah, Brittany, you're kind of maybe if I'm reading your right, you write about like their variety of experience. It's not perfect by any stretch. I've actually wondered if it wouldn't be a cool volunteer opportunity to try to have somebody do more captioning in real time, and that might be better than what Zoom offers. It could just be the way I talk, but yeah, my experience has been very varied on that for sure. Yeah, but certainly better than nothing. For what that's worth. Ashley, have you used that?
Yes, and I have to agree with you, Jen. It's not the greatest, but it's something, and it allows for greater accessibility of the meetings, which I'm all about. So, we've used it, but I'd love it to be more improved than it is at the moment.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. And I feel like it'll get better, right? I mean, this technology is advancing so rapidly, so I feel like it'll get better. But I love that you're considering that as something that should be part of these events. It absolutely should.
yeah, so I can follow up with you, Jen and Gretchen. We have a lot of our museum programs recorded on YouTube, and so we thought about having a legacy project for our junior board, which is like a high school leadership activity, is to have them listen and then caption, and then maybe like add the transcriptions on the back
Yes.
end. So that
Yeah.
if someone comes along and watches it, it's better. I know that doesn't help us in real time, but we have a meeting set up to talk about technology, and hopefully we find one that's free. So I'll
I
keep you all
love that.
posted.
Yes, please do. And that accessibility is so key. So yes, love that. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that to the conversation. Jerry.
Hi, NIADA has some expenses, and people are talking about free memberships, et cetera, et cetera. How many of you have board insurance? Because we have board insurance, so that's, money.
Everyone should have board insurance.
Do all of you
Everyone should
have
have
board
board
insurance?
Yes. I mean, we do.
Of the
Brittany, do you
people,
all?
the people who have presented so far, who've been doing an amazing job. I've been jotting down ideas. Who has board insurance and who doesn't?
We do not,
We-
but it's now going to be a consideration for Saturday.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
currently do
We'll
not,
definitely be
but
talking about it on Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I-
do also here in Sacramento. We've had it for a number of years. We just feel that it's necessary, especially in California, because it's people sue everybody for everything.
Litigious. Thank you.
That is the truth, Mary Lynn. Gretchen was just talking about maybe this could be a session we could talk about. I cannot advocate more highly for board insurance. It's not that expensive, and I'm happy to talk offline with folks about that. It's more affordable than you might think, and it eliminates a lot of risk for us personally in these leadership roles. Jordania.
Not on board insurance, but on closed captioning. One thing, now we use it in Teams because my organization uses Teams, but they've just recently launched, they call it Copilot, and it's an AI meeting note taker. And I've just recently started using that, and it's fantastic. It doesn't like everything, it doesn't get everything right, but it provides afterwards a note summary that I can review and then send out to my volunteers, so I don't have to try to take the notes from the meeting while I'm presenting or while I'm giving information, and I don't have to collect everything that all the volunteers say. So that's been a really great resource. I don't know that Zoom has anything like that yet, but I do know there's some functionality for things like that in Canva that you can kind of run alongside a meeting. Don't have a lot of information outside of like Teams Copilot, but definitely something to look into. There's so many cool things that are coming out with AI in that aspect, more so than like closed captioning, I think it is doing. So might be something we're checking out.
Great idea. Brittany also put in the chat another product that she's seen in use as well. Thank you. That's a great point to make. All right, any other questions before we move along, or comments, ideas? There's so many people. I'm trying to make sure I can see if anyone's off mute, and I'm not seeing it. Okay, so this is an interesting pivot because we just heard from Ashley about a lot of what they're doing is hybrid, and Gretchen has experience with a hybrid conference. So this will be a nice segue into that conversation. Gretchen, on the road.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, we're in New Hampshire now. And anybody here from New Hampshire? Because I have to call them out. In all the states we've visited, upwards of almost 40 now, it's the only place where there's like highway signs that say liquor store, lottery tickets, next exit, and it's an official state sign. So I'm trying to figure that out. We won't be stopping this time, maybe next time. So yes, this is our 10th anniversary of the hybrid conference. And absolutely ditto to what Ashley talked about, and as far as the meeting planning with Mary Lynn. And so I'm just going to touch on a few things because I want to make sure we make time for Jerry. We do go to the half hour and we want to make sure we have time for questions. So I will go just to the next slide. And we talked a little bit about one of the things we brought up in the invitation was unusual meeting places, and I love to share this photo because you see the horse in the background. So this is the CAVA, Kentucky Association of Volunteer Administrators, and they usually have their hybrid conference at Churchill Downs because they have meeting space. So you just never know. There are a lot of places out there that have meeting space available. So, you know, it's a great way to network with your peers, everyone you know. There may be all sorts of places that you just didn't know, but that's pretty cool little spot to be. So as of course you may have heard, we are doing our 10th hybrid conference this year. We're getting a lot of great feedback about the topic. People are really excited about it. So the things I just want to bring up quickly is that, you know, it's been successful because we've had a great partnership with Better Impact, and then with the folks at the Volunteer Management Professionals of Canada, and knowing, you know, the subject matter experts and letting them stay in their lane. So Better Impact brings the resources with the technology. So for VMPC and Alive, we don't worry a whole lot about the technology. They have a dedicated media person who can do the high quality, production venue, and that's fine. And then as far as with VMPC and Alive, we know how to connect with the profession and the contacts in our place. So Better Impact lets us do that. We do have a written agreement up front about who is responsible for what. And, I think it's just really important, as Brittany talked about, surveying your members. If we always take input, and it does facilitate change whenever it's possible. So for example, we've gotten feedback that the handbook that we send out with the conference can be confusing because it has 2 time zones in it. So this year we're going to create 2 handbooks, one for each time zone. So just to make that a little simpler to read, and we're going to make it a lot smaller. And then just always be open to new ideas. And I often try to be, and because Shirley is, oh yeah, Shirley's here. I am not the oldest person in the room, but I often is, and I think Shirley would also tell you that, you have to be careful of being that, well, we've always done it that way, because that is usually a turnoff for anybody else that you're working with. You want to be open to new ideas, and if you tried it 10 years ago and it didn't work, it's okay to bring that up, but maybe you will now, because as everyone has also said, things have just changed so much since COVID, and using that technology piece as your friend. One thing I have heard from host sites for the hybrid conference, if they try to do something in person with several people in the room, and then with a Zoom link for others, it's really tough if you're just using your laptop. Really need to have a professional sound system. And I'll just make a brief plug again. If you are nearby to your local office of AARP, when I was there back in the day, they had really good technology as far as virtual meeting sessions and meeting spaces. And that might be another good place to reach out to and see if that's possible. If you're near your state capital, that's often where they're going to be, but there are also in larger states like Florida and California, they will have regional locations, and they may have a state office. That doesn't hurt to check it out. That's what I'm saying. And I'm just happy to answer any other questions. There is a slide later about the hybrid conference, so we can skip over that one, Jen, to save time. We have more time for overall questions and feedback, and I will stop there.
Awesome. Thanks, Gretchen. I have attended the hybrid conference as an attendee. I didn't have to do any of the logistic work, but I will say it is so smooth. I've always been so impressed with how the hybrid conference runs, because as an attendee, it was just smooth and easy and enjoyable. I really was impressed with all the plates that are spinning behind the scenes. So any questions for Gretchen about hybrid conference or unique event spaces, which came up with Dallas as well?
I went to a local association meeting in a little north of Miami Beach, and it was one of the members who works at an animal shelter. So for the first 15 minutes, she brought in some puppies. So we were all cuddling puppies before the meeting. If that didn't put everybody in a great mood, you don't have a heartbeat probably. But
yes,
again, you reaching out to your members, you just never know. And
right, and like
Sabrina
was saying earlier, seeing like the behind the scenes and how the volunteer program works at this different organization, that is valuable as well. And I'm seeing ideas about having events at wineries. Yes, please. Also, we have a lot of our happy hours are at breweries around town. You can mix it up. It always doesn't have to be in a conference room. We have networking events at, like a pub or a pizza place or a coffee shop or a breakfast place. I mean, lots of ways to approach it. Jordania.
Gretchen mentioned the puppies, and I just had to do a little plug. So I'm on the committee working to plan the 2026 in-person Alive conference. And that was one of the things that came up that we're hoping whatever location is chosen, we can find a local organization there to bring puppies to the conference, because somebody mentioned that we need to have puppies at the conference, and like it absolutely has to happen. So
I would love to be in conversation around that. I used to work in an animal welfare organization, so there are good ways to do puppies and less good ways to do puppies. So yes, let's talk puppies. But Jordania, you raise a really good point, which is that applications are open right now and through the end of the month, right? Do you want to say more?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the end of the month, so you have another few days. If you saw in our last Alive newsletter, your local association can apply to be a partner host for the Alive 2026 spring conference. We're just in the beginning stages of planning that, and we would love to work with your local association and bring the conference to your city, and partner with you for these kind of conferences. It's great to have a dedicated team on the ground. So being able to have a strong local association who has some volunteers who can help out at the conference, and partner with us for logistics, finding a space, those kind of things, is what we're looking to provide. So if you haven't gotten that application in yet, please do so. If you need help with completing the application, or you need additional information, feel free to reach out to me. You can also reach out to Shelly Beck, who is our organizer for the conference, and she's happy to meet with you and help you fill out the application, or answer any questions that you might have. But I'll find the link real quick. The application is on our website, so I'll find the link and post it here in just a moment.
Thank you, Jordania. And yes, just to be clear, we're not asking you to do the conference. We're asking a local association to kind of be resources, like where's a good restaurant? We could have a happy hour, you know, things like that. Just some boots on the ground who know the community. So
yeah,
thank
you don't have to, we'll plan it.
Yes.
We just want to partner with you.
Yes, exactly. And we're switching over so that Jerry can grab control of the slides. So as soon as your slides are up and running, my friend, we will hear from
okay.
you.
Okay, hang on just
I can see your desktop and there's your slides. All right. I'll let you click through. But yes, Jordania, thank you so much for taking the time to mention that. So the hybrid or the in-person conferences, we're planning it for 2026. Am I correct on that? Or was it 2025? 2026. Okay, great.
Sorry, I'm just having to move things around a
No
little bit.
problem.
You're fine.
Jerry, your desktop looks like my desktop, and I love it.
Oh, and I cleaned it up for today.
You knew company was coming.
Yeah. So I'm kind of the wrap-up act. So similarities, differences. I've been jotting down a lot of ideas. And this is kind of like a sort of a review of what you all have covered. So those of you who don't know.
Sorry, Jerry, your caption is on.
Oh, thank you. Arlette always catches me on that. Oh, hey, sorry. I have to keep moving the pictures, your faces around. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So you know what I want to do? I apologize. Okay. So I'm the New York Association for Volunteer Administration president, and I serve on the local association committee. Okay. Oops. Okay, so here we have Gretchen on the High Line in NYC. Here we have her at yesterday's brown bag breakfast, and we all took the memo, wear blue. That just happened, okay? So this is the agenda. I'm going to talk about meetings, the calendar planning, expanding on what Phil has talked about, events planning, which is really project management. My approach is always work backwards. I'm going to talk about some discounts we do for local associations and reducing barriers to our leadership volunteers who serve on the boards or the committees. Okay, so I never go into a meeting without an agenda, and that's just me, even if it's really simple. You know, we've talked about like having a facilitator or whatever. Sometimes it's the person who's running the meeting's responsibility. And it's always, to me, it's always important to stick to the agenda, but things come up. So my approach is other business. Oh, that's a great idea. We've got allowed time at the end of the meeting for other business, and I'll make a note of it, but just in case I forget, remind me. I also think it's always interesting, the balance between personal and business, because Jen does a great job of, with our committee meetings, it's like we catch up on each other. And, you know, it's always nice and personal. Years ago, when somebody did that, I went, let's get on to business. Let's get on to business. And now I've confirmed to the other approach, because it really is, it's humanizing, and it's building relationships with the board or the committees or whoever and things like that. One of the things is NIAB's had this cumbersome policies and procedures for the committees and the board and stuff like that. So some of the things we've tried to do is simplify that because our committee structure broke down during the pandemic. We want to make things more user-friendly. Something that we're doing this year, and it works for some and not for others, we always have an agenda for a committee meeting. And what we do is live type in notes in a different font color because I'm visually stimulated, and keeping it really simple. So everybody's seeing the notes as we go along, so we don't have to send out minutes that then are reviewed and then are voted on. And you put a star on the action item, and then at the end of the meeting, you go back and you copy and paste all those starred items, you know, and it works. It's so far it's working really nicely. It's making there's a little time because of your typing, but our meetings aren't necessarily any longer than they used to be. You know, they're still 60 minutes or less. But you've all talked about the technologies that you are using that perhaps at some point we'll investigate, but for now, this little notes routine is working about. We also record the meetings, and if something confidential has to come up, you can always delete that before the recording is shared, because we do want it to be a safe space. Now, we listen to the board members, and we used to have quarterly board meetings at 90 minutes. And today, nobody can do like a 90-minute meeting, especially since we're still on Zoom and stuff like that. So now we do them bi-monthly, every 60 minutes. And we really, even though they're jam-packed, we keep it to 60 minutes. And like, as I go along with the agenda, the board chair, Arlette, and I will like cross things out going, okay, we don't have to do that because it's more important for us to stick to the 60 minutes. With our committee meetings, once again, we've kind of simplified the policies and procedures. And a little later, I'll talk about how when we didn't have committees, they fell apart. How can you have a chair or a co-chair? So when I became president, I introduced officer liaisons to the committees. So I know the committees have some leadership happening. Okay, so the calendar. Why the calendar? You really want to respect people's time, same as with meetings, but also you want your board members and your committee members able to manage the time and that their commitment so they can pace out. We definitely have board members who that's really critical for them. So the first year I was president, post-pandemic, things had really fallen apart. I was insistent on a calendar and we were overly ambitious. Our deliverables include like 3 workshops per year, as many brown bag breakfasts as we can, as many happy hours as we can. You all have been talking about regular meetings. We have an annual members meeting. The way our members meet is at the workshops, at the happy hours, at the brown bag breakfast. We have to, in our calendar, figure in our principles and practices, volunteer program management, a typo, volunteer program management course. And that secretary of mine messed up. We now do that in the spring because we want to leave open the option in the fall for the Alive MCH conference. Okay, also in our calendar is we have board nominations go out in October. The nominating committee has to start meeting in June because mid-November is our annual members meeting, followed by the 3rd and final free workshop. So when I introduced my strategic plan proposal, I had like all the things charted out, and then we had a whole calendar of how we broke it down to what are we offering each quarter. And then that was too ambitious. So now as in my second year, we do it every 4 months. Okay, so events. my approach is working backwards. For 20 years, I was in theater, and the last 10 years, I was managing a student costume shop at NYU, teaching technical classes. Okay, so project management, it relates to our deliverables, what's on our calendar. And one way in theater is like you work backwards. It's like, when the diva sings, that's opening night, right? But before that, you have to kind of go back to, oops, let me move this around so I can arrows. First thing we do is we meet with the designers and the staff, right? Then you plan for the following. For those of you who don't know, it's like the muslin fitting is where you develop the pattern. Then you buy the fabric, then you do the fabric fitting, then there's the final costume fitting, better have the shoes so you can mark the hem and blah, blah, blah. But then you go into, oops, sorry. Then you go into tech rehearsals where some costumes are used, some aren't, the first dress rehearsal, the final dress rehearsal, and then the opening night when the diva sings. So it's a kind of like where in our business, it's the outcomes. Our volunteers want to know what the outcome is. Your members want to know what the outcome is. So going backwards. And I one time worked with this one person who they thought of themselves as like a project manager. But, we set up the tables for them. I'm trying to avoid gender, I'm trying to them. And after we set up the stuff on the table, then the person pulls out the tablecloths. So like one of my mantras in terms of events is, what's the order of you loading up the van for a camping trip? So remember, the first thing out is the last thing you want to put in. So that's kind of like my little just quick tip on project management in your calendars. Okay, so one of our deliverables are 3 workshops annually. Our members, once again, you all have talked about this, our members don't want more than 60-minute Zoom meetings, but because we want to respect the work of our presenters who often are used to like longer than 60 minutes, it's like we've added on 15 minutes Q&A. So our members know that if they want to leave after 60 minutes, that's okay. So we experimented with a hybrid this first workshop of the year, which was a panel discussion. It was a bust. And just so you all know, in New York City, people are so hostile to using their space. I think it's something really sad. But when we lost our site for last year's hybrid conference, we reached out to 5 nonprofits where our colleagues work, and we just couldn't. We got a deal on this April workshop, and then the day of, despite the tech rehearsal and everything, we had disasters. We basically had people were not interested in coming in person, but that's okay. Now, one of the things we do with the first workshop of the year is we make it into like a panel discussion, because then you can tap into your members, and even we tapped into colleagues with other professional associations. One, it saves money. And the board starts in January, and they don't have a lot of lead time for the first workshop. For the last 3 years, we've wanted it to be in March, and it's always ended up in April. In terms of our workshops, the Professional Development Committee works on that. The topic, the presenter, the suggestions, the RFP, negotiating the fee, the letter of agreement, blah, blah, blah. So I know next community of practice is going to be talking more about like finding speakers, etc. Now, one of the things we do, just so you know, promotion for our events are 4 to 6 weeks out. If money is involved, we really try to get it out 6 weeks in advance so payment can be handled. Okay, we now kick off the year with Brown Bag Breakfast, which is focused on member benefits and getting to know the members, the board, as well as the non-members. Originally, it was like for new members. People wanted to, have coffee clutches with the new members, introduce them. It eventually moved away from that. And then it became like a topic. We wanted a topic because if people are going to say, I'm going to be out of the office, what's the topic? What are you going to get out of it? Then it became more like a networking event. And now it's even become like a member outreach. So it's also board orientation part 2. What happens in board orientation part 1? Bylaws, policies and procedures, we do 2 team building exercises, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they're over at 90 minutes. So like now, join us for another 60 minutes. And then we're going to go over membership benefits because you all are advocates for increasing membership. We offer our Principles and Practice of Volunteer Program Management course. The secretary got it right on this one. It used to be 2 days in person, post-pandemic. During the pandemic, I set up a proposal that we should update it like we always do, but transition it to virtual. So it's now 4 half days. And I mentioned the pending live conference, and then I mentioned our annual members meeting. So where you're all meeting regularly, we in addition to the 3 workshops, we try to throw in the brown bag breakfasts. And actually, yesterday we had one with Gretchen, which was great. Very little planning on our part for that one. We pride ourselves on being creative and clever. In terms of promotion and marketing, we have our timeline. And our committees really need to collaborate. It really is an amazing team effort. You know, this is why we can't do like a calendar in advance. We're just like, right, you know, we're doing it as it's happening. What is that expression, you know, flying the ship while it's still being built. So, you know, we established the date, the time, the information, the description. Is it going to be virtual, in person, hybrid? The social media committee does a lot of work. We actually meet weekly. And we map out like 4 to 6 weeks at a time because often they overlap. Now, how do we communicate with our members? We do e-blasts, and we also have a prospect list. We've had to rebuild our database post-pandemic. I have a Facebook and LinkedIn pages that we post. We do outreach to local partners, which I'm going to be talking about. We have a bi-monthly e-newsletter, which is really comprehensive. And we have a very good open rate on it. And open rate was mentioned in the very first from the folks from Dallas. So our officer liaison to social media committee is great. At our board meetings, we always get a report out on our open rate. Our e-newsletter has a really high open rate. In terms of our discounts to similar organizations, Greater New York Association of Directors of Volunteer Services in Healthcare Facilities is an official partner. Association of Professional Volunteer Administrators out in Long Island are a partner. The New York State Association of Volunteer Service Administrators is like as a partner. So they our members now get free workshops. They used to have to pay. These partners get a discount. They pay $20, non-members pay $25. We have vouchers as a member benefit, so you can invite somebody who is not a member, and rather than them paying like a $25 non-member rate, the members can invite somebody. And we really are not strict on monitoring that. And especially as board members, give out as many vouchers as you can because it's membership outreach. Okay, one more. In terms of reducing barriers for our volunteers, the folks who get things done, the board and the committees that we've all kind of referred to, we've got the membership committee, the professional development committee, the social media committee, and then we have ad hoc committees, which are short-term, and they have a specific purpose and a specific duties. This is something that we discovered when we revamped the Principles and Practices course. And being very precise, because the year before we had some like ad hoc committees on outreach and diversity, and it really kind of blew up in our faces because it hadn't been defined. And then people wanted it too broad and some people wanted it narrow. Anyway, so this year we had a scholarship in a way of celebrating 25th anniversary. So we had an ad hoc committee for the President's Circle Membership Scholarship because this year, even though some people might think this is good, I thought it was not so good. For the first time, we had 50-50 gender representation on the board, which is really weird because we have 3 men, 3 women. And that's just untypical of who serves in our field. And I looked it up, like the previous year, it was 93% female, the year before that, 88%. So going down to 50% was a problem. And this was something that was like really important to me to get on our strategic plan. We had to do outreach for our principals and practicing co-instructors because 2 of the 4 from last year dropped out. And we continually try to update and simplify the policies and procedures to make it more user-friendly. And thank you. Q&A.
Oh, look at you right under the wire. Jerry, thank you so much. You know, as a fellow theater nerd, I always appreciate you using that as a very applicable what's the word I want? Oh, you're not
Transferable
talking about-
skill. It's a
Thank you.
transferable
Yes,
skill.
exactly. Thank you for all of that. I also really appreciate you calling out that community building isn't a waste of time. We've all day we've been hearing about how these relationships that are built through these networking opportunities help support the work of the organization. And not only that, but people want to have fun. People want to get to know each other a little bit. And especially if you're trying to do equity work at your organization, equity work can only happen in relationship. And so having that community building is absolutely essential. It's not a nice to have. It's not a waste of time. It is essential to do much of the work that is done in a local association. So thank you for calling that out as well. I know we don't have much time, but are there any questions? And I know if some folks have had to jump off to other meetings. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We already talked about the hybrid conference, which is coming soon. If you don't know about the benefits of being a local association member, please reach out or check out our website. Gretchen and I would be happy to fill you in on what it's all about. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's always so nice to be together with you all, and I always learn so much. So thank you to all of our presenters for sharing, for everyone participating. Really appreciate you all. Have a good rest of your week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Great to see you.